So I think the most important advice that I can give to entrepreneurs out there is to plan. I would spend as much time as you can coming up with names and ideas and concepts and trying to think of how it's going to relate to what you're trying to do.
Welcome back to Poop to Gold. I'm Benton Crane, CEO of Harmon Brothers and the host of the show. Now we're doing a bit of a pivot. As many of our listeners know, we usually cover an entrepreneur's Poop to Gold journey. But we're going to start covering a brand's Poop to Gold journey, where we look at how brands go from obscurity, or poop, it's where all brands start out, to make that journey to becoming a household name, which is the gold. So think of your Nikes, your Apples, your Coca-Colas of the world. Those are household names, and that's where entrepreneurs want to get to. So today I have a very special guest with me. I've got with me today Jamie Thornton, founder and director of ConsumerDirect Mortgage. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thank you.
Now, let me talk just a second about ConsumerDirect Mortgage. Okay, so ConsumerDirect Mortgage is one of our clients. I'm not gonna go make the argument that they're a household brand yet, but I am gonna make the argument that they're on the journey from poop to gold. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about that journey and what it's like to go from obscurity to working toward becoming that household name. And part of that journey, you guys just announced a rebrand, correct?
Correct.
Tell us about it.
The current brand that we have, ConsumerDirect Mortgage, I think when we sit and think about it, the name Consumer Direct, it is an industry term. Right? So that's what we do. That's the line of business that we're in. That's the channel that we participate in the mortgage business. So like if you go to conferences and things like that, they talk about, the Consumer Direct business and kind of like naming your business Pants, So I just, I think we as
Pants
a team,
for you.
Right. And I think it's pretty cool because I think we're really good at what we do. And I feel like we're the best at what we do in our line of business, but it doesn't really resonate with people. I don't think people typically are necessarily understand what Consumer Direct is. I also think it's a bit labeling, Consumer Direct, like, I don't know. So, just as a team, we started talking about the concept of renaming the business to give us a little bit more runway and marketing ability. And, once we really started talking about it, I thought that it was the right way to go, as well as the bank leadership. We really want to be able to get out in the open marketplace. It's funny, the mortgage business is extremely competitive. Mm-hmm. And, in our space, we're kind of like a, smaller to mid-size mortgage lender. We do compete nationally. And I always explain to people, for companies our size, it's like competing in the octagon, because it's close combat. We're small, so we compete with all the other small lenders.
It's a bloodbath.
It is, man. And the mortgage industry is very sensitive to market conditions. I mean, it swings up, down, and, at times you come through markets where, we just went through 2020. The lowest rates in history, the greatest year for the mortgage industry ever. Like it'll probably never happen again. Where do you go from here? Well, things will just kind of get worse and tougher, and that's when you really find out, what you're made of in our business. And when you're small and you're in close combat, it goes from a cage match with 1 or 2 to a cage match with 10. What I believe is that we need to be able to get out into the open arena. You don't have that hand-to-hand combat. You can't do that unless people know who you are.
Yeah, unless you have a brand.
Right.
I love that analogy because, every entrepreneur that starts out in the beginning, they just have to get those first initial sales, and get steady sales coming in the door so they can hire a team and pay their bills and make their business sustainable. But if they just stay right there, then it's like you said, it goes from 1 in the octagon to 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, then 12, and it just keeps getting more and more crowded in that octagon. And it's only the businesses and the entrepreneurs who are able to graduate into building a brand that stands above, that steps outside the octagon.
Right.
Those are the brands that win the big prize and really stand the test of time.
Yep.
So I actually think the route you guys have taken is actually a super smart one. So ConsumerDirect Mortgage, that's a name that works very well for direct sales, right?
Yeah.
If somebody types in, I need a mortgage, ConsumerDirect Mortgage is a perfect name to reach them with. It's also a name that puts you right in the middle of that octagon. And so while it's been great to get you from day one, which was 8 years ago?
Yep.
It's been great to get you from where you started to where you're at today, which is a phenomenally successful business. But now I think you're brilliant to see that, okay, but now it's time to get out of the octagon and move on to the next phase of the business, which is turning it into a household name.
which is scary.
What's scary about that transition?
Well, I think, it's scary in a good way. You think of the history that we have out there. I don't want to say we're an online company because, everybody's online these days. So it's not necessarily we're an online company. And it takes years to build up the reviews and, the customer awareness and the customer confidence. And, we've got reviews all over the place. We've got lots of partners. We're partners with NerdWallet. We're partners with Credit Karma. We're partners with LendingTree. We're partners with Costco. We've got all these great partners, right? We'll always have those relationships. They're critical to our business. But right now we're 80% third party and 20% ourselves.
Meaning where your leads are coming from.
Correct. And it needs to rotate the other way where we're 80% taking care of ourselves and 20% working with our partners. We need to make that transition so that we're not so dependent on these third parties.
And that's where you need the brand that people know and remember and trust, right?
Yeah, and I think it helps the third parties as well. I mean, if they have partnerships, all those companies, or most of them work with Quicken and Rocket. Some of them work with Loan Depot, another big player in the space. I think it helps everybody when you're a well-known, well-established brand. The scary part is that, you're making a transition from what you were to, this new name, and it's, how are people going to receive you? Is it going to go? You just don't know, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know until you know it, right?
Here's something that I find super interesting about that, though. You can take any great brand of today, and if you rewind back to the beginning of that brand, I don't care what brand name it was not a great brand at the time. You name it, Apple, Google, Kleenex, Wheaties, whatever.
Throughout my career, it seems like everything happens for a reason. Timing of everything is just strange. I was telling you that the trademark for our new name, that deal just went down just a few minutes ago where we finally were able to secure that.
For context, we're on set filming a commercial for Real Genius, and the trademark just signed like minutes ago, right?
Yes. Yeah, so it's just weird how everything falls into place. Luckily I have an amazing team of people that support these concepts. I've got part of the crew with me here today. The bank is extremely supportive of what, our goals, and, they want to see us prosper and thrive, and it's a cool feeling, but it is a little scary.
Yeah, and when you say the bank, you're talking about like the parent company that owns.
So our parent company is First Bank. And First Bank is headquartered out of Nashville, Tennessee, $11 billion publicly traded bank. ConsumerDirect became a part of First Bank, so I became an employee December 2013. So started ConsumerDirect as a concept out of my house. It had a small team and pitched the bank on the concept. They gave us the opportunity, and here we are today.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the name Real Genius for a second. So just like Google, Apple, any other name, it's going out of the gate. Nobody knows Real Genius. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows what it means. Nobody knows what it stands for, all of those things. You're starting this journey of building it into a great brand, right? Great brands are built, not found. I think that's a really important concept for people to understand, because when you go to choose a name that's going to become your brand, you're not out there trying to say, okay, what is a great brand? What is a great name? You're out there trying to say, what name can I build into a great name? Or in other words, what name doesn't get in its own way? As you went through that process to choose out Real Genius, what are some of the things that you're looking for to say, okay, it can't do this and it can't do that, otherwise it'll get in its own way?
It's obviously extremely challenging to find a name in 2020, 2021. Everything's taken.
When you're talking about URLs, right?
Well, it's URLs, names, or trademarks. Somebody's using it some way, form, or other. That's why you have these companies that are making up names. I mean, Zillow, is that a word? Like, there's lots of just, people putting words together to come up with a name. I wanted to stay away from that. I wanted to try to put something, together that I could relate to. But the one thing I learned from you guys going through this rebranding process, which we did work with you guys on, when you are selecting a name, it needs to be something that you can remember. It needs to be something that you can spell.
And pronounce.
Right? And it needs to be as short as possible. It needs to have some sort of marketing play to it. And of course, you need to be able to trademark it and own the URL. And there's several other things, like where does it fit in the spectrum? Is it more tech oriented, or is it more like Chase or Wells Fargo kind kind of vintage. We see ourselves in the technology, but finance. So we wanted to kind of be up in the upper quadrant there with companies like, SoFi and Amazon, and at least the focus when I went into it. So, and you just want it to be a cool name, right? I think the other thing that I was really thinking about from a marketing play perspective is, when I mention the name to people, sometimes they'll kind of look at me and like, really? Like Real Genius? And, I think the first thing people think is that we're talking about us. And it's not us, right? It's the customer, right? So, our goal is to help people make better financial decisions. We have a consultant that works with us on just about everything we have going on. His name is Brett McCracken. He's fantastic. He works with this team. He made the comparison that people will spend, weeks, months shopping for TVs, comparing washers and dryers, comparing, but, they go to buy a house and it's the first person they get on the phone. They don't take much time to shop for the biggest investment of their life. I think that's the
Meaning
thing.
when they're choosing between mortgage companies and that sort of thing.
They're not really aware of how much more they may be spending. I think that is what our goal is. We want to get out and help people make better financial decisions when, they're buying a home or refinancing, and we want to give them a 5-star experience. So I feel like that having the name, the URL, the trademark, and what our goal is as a business, it just all kind of fit, right?
You point out something that's super important when you say, we're not the real genius here.
Right.
The customer is the real genius. As you're making this transition from, a direct response oriented company that's gotten you to where you're at, and now you're starting to graduate into building a brand for the long term, that distinction of always positioning the customer as the hero in their own journey, we're just here to support. We're here to guide. We're here to provide tools, but you're the hero. That's so critical in the long term when you're really trying to build a brand. What was kind of the thinking as you were doing that positioning?
We go out of our way to be extremely efficient. We go out of our way to provide value, and it's hard to get that message in front of people. Unless you have a big stage, it's hard to get that message out. That's why we're doing this, right? Is we want to get that message out there. And,
this as in we're here filming an ad for it, right?
Right, and it's important for us to get in front of people and let them know that, hey, we can save you money. You don't need to pay more. One of the power statements is the commercial is that you could save as much as $5,000 in closing cost alone. That's
meaningful.
Well, $5,000 is a lot of money. When you're buying a house, there's furniture. I mean, there's lots of things you think about. So, that's a lot of money. And that's us comparing ourselves for a purchase or a refinance against the top 5 lenders in the country on every, just about every loan scenario combination that I could come up with. We have to keep a spreadsheet for compliance purposes, right? We're a heavily regulated business, so we have to be able to substantiate our claims. I think that that's a big deal. That was the minimum number. I think it's important to get that across to people.
Can you use that as a marketing claim similar to Geico's 15 minutes will save you 15%?
Well, and so that's kind of what we do. I mean, we spent the last 3 years building most of our technology we utilize. And the one thing that we have on our website is it's an instant price tool, right? And so you can go on, if you're shopping, you can go on there and you can run scenarios, and you can instantly get a full estimate of the closing costs, interest rate, any fees that are involved in a couple seconds. So, awesome. and so our pitch is, 30 seconds could save you thousands, right? And it's true. And the mortgage business is a competitive space. There are going to be people out there that may be cheaper one day to the next, but, consistently, we do it day in and day out. I mean, that's what our goal is to always provide value to our customers. And a 5-star experience.
We've talked a lot about your path forward, what your path looks like as you're going through this transition and now you're working on building this brand for the long term. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are back at the beginning stages of the Poop to Gold journey? They're still in obscurity. They're still trying to start from scratch. What advice do you give to them?
So I think the most important advice that I can give to entrepreneurs out there is to plan. I would spend as much time as you can coming up with names and ideas and concepts and trying to think of how it's going to relate to what you're trying to do. It is critical, to really think about that in this day and age. As we were talking about a little while ago, we've now moved to, one-word companies, right? Obviously we all know Amazon and Apple, but you have Square, you have Acorn, you have Robinhood. That's kind of where things are going. It's competitive out there and it takes a lot of thought. But as an entrepreneur, though, you also have to spend a lot of time planning your business and working your plan. I spent a good 4 or 5 years, because this is my second company, thinking about what that business was like and the things that we did wrong, that I did wrong, and how I could fix it. And that's what this company was all about, is how do we have the best people and provide the best service at the lowest prices and, be able to scale. It was not easy, but, again, it was planning and spreadsheets and models. And just when I thought something was going to happen, and then it wouldn't. And then, you just keep going and going, and eventually things came together. One of my partners who's here today, we've been together for 20 years. We were talking about this last night, that if you would have told me how long it was going to take for this second business to come together, I don't know that I would have lasted, because, it was a fight to get to this point. And now that we look at it and where we are, it's just like, it really is surreal.
It almost sounds overly simplistic to say, like, hey, my tip is, to plan. But I couldn't agree with you more, because I can't count how many entrepreneurs who I've met who are not thinking 5, 10, 20 years down the road. Instead, they're just thinking about the here and the now, and they're making really short-term, stupid decisions that are cutting off their future. And if they would just think a little further down the road.
I'll tell you, I can understand where they're coming from, right? Because I remember when it was me, you don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But that's exactly the point. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's, here we are, I'm 8, 9 years down the road, and we're going to rebrand the business. It's just a great example of just take the time and really think it through. When we went through the rebranding process, I must have had 150 names. Those 150 names, it's like I'm going into a thesaurus, and I'm looking at keywords, I'm looking at what the alternate keywords were. I was going into definitions, trying to find out different combinations, and then you got to go check the URL to see if they're taken. Yep. It's a task, but it's worth the effort. Eventually, just when you feel like, I was about to throw in the towel a couple times. I'm like, I'm not making any progress here. And then all of a sudden, something pops. Mm-hmm. And ironically, it was at the writer's retreat. As we were going through the writing process, we were still not certain about the original name that we had. As we were going through the process in the script, she said, "You're not a genius, you're a real genius," or something. It was something like that. And I was like, that may be a good name. Mm-hmm. So, I started going and digging, and, next thing I know, that's where we were. And I had to tell Kelly, who is our actress, she's our genie in our commercial, but she also wrote the script. She's fantastic. But she also is the one that kind of threw that out there with one of the other writers. So I was telling her that today, that, she's like, "I really like the name." And I'm like, well, you guys inspired it. So it's like, you never know where it's going to come from. You could be taking a hike and see something. You could be taking a walk. You could be playing with your kids. You could be shopping. I think that's the thing, is when you're trying to brand a business, you really have to be constantly trying to absorb options.
Where should our listeners stay in touch with you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. So it's
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie A. Thornton, under ConsumerDirect Mortgage today. That'll change to Real Genius eventually. But they can also reach me at work anytime. My email address is also on my LinkedIn page. So, reach out.
Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your experience with our listeners.
Well, I appreciate being a part of the Harmon Brothers family. So thank you.
Happy to have you. Make sure to tune in. We're not going to be doing guest interviews as frequently as we have in the past. A lot of the episodes are going to be myself and the Harmon Brothers team talking about what we're doing to help entrepreneurs on their own Poop to Gold journey. We're occasionally going to have guests who have either built a household brand or who are in the process of building a household brand. So make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, and we'll see you on the next one.
Want to learn the tricks of our trade? We have them all laid out in our courses on Harmon Brothers University. This isn't surface level stuff here. This is our entire playbook, all our secrets laid out in full. The same training we give our own employees. You'll find courses on ad buying, writing video scripts to sell your product or service, creating the kind of large production ads we're known for, even making short ads using nothing but your cell phone. If you're looking to use video marketing to take your business to the next level, Harmon Brothers University has the course for you.
Our students have seen incredible growth in their businesses by implementing what they learned in our courses. Take these reviews as living proof.
We've now got multiple campaigns that are in the millions of views and in the multiple millions of dollars in sales. Within a week, we're close to 10 million views, over $1 million in sales, And most impressively, we've covered 100% of the production costs in the first 24 hours of releasing it.
We saw immediate results. Sales went up 10x the first day.
The first video we did is over 30 million views. The most customers that we've ever acquired in a single month. I think we had about 26,000 new customers.
Go to HarmonBrothersUniversity.com to start accelerating your business's growth with video.